right. Today, I am pleased to be joined by Redica Systems Chief Technology Officer, AJ Saha. Hi, AJ.
Hey, John, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. We've got a lot to cover today. I think everyone wants to hear from Chief Technology Officers these days. We'll certainly get into the buzziest topic of artificial intelligence and machine learning. But before we do, tell me a little bit about you personally and what you're currently working for or working on for Redica Systems.
Sure. First of all, glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. I think there is a lot of exciting things going on at Redica at the technology front. So excited to talk about it. So coming to my background, my educational background was in engineering, mechanical engineering, and then a management degree. But very early in my career, I shifted to software development. And over last 2 decades, a little more than 21 years now, I've been in software development in various roles, from developer to management roles to executive roles. Prior to joining Redica, which was almost a year and a half back, I was CTO at another startup in the Silicon Valley. Before that, I was VP of engineering, leading data and analytics team and in a large financial services organization. So my background has been mostly around data analytics, AI, ML, and that's kind of the specialty I bring to the table. But in general, like software development, data product development is where my interest is, and solving complex business problems using data, using technology.
Well, that's certainly relevant, the data experience, the analytics, and AI ML. How does that experience and the last year and a half of Redica Systems, how does that influence your thinking about what you're working on now and say for the next year?
Yeah, no, one of the reason why I was excited about Redica was because Redica Systems is a data and analytics company. So coming in, I wanted to first solve more of the foundational challenges, addressing certain technical debts that we had with our data infrastructure, data architecture overall. So the first few months, the focus was rebuild our data architecture and the entire data stack with a modern tools and technologies and following all the industry best practices, loosely a data lake house type architecture where the entire data lifecycle gets managed with proper transparency and visibility to business. I think that opened up a lot of innovation opportunities for us. And then taking advantage of the data platform, now we are focused on bringing in analytics, bringing in AI ML into our product that ultimately benefits our customers. We serve better quality data, we serve better insights by processing the data using some of these new techniques.
So to paraphrase, is it fair to say that you spent a lot of the last 18 months sort of fixing what's under the hood, and that it sets us up to innovate the front end and the analytical capability for our customers at a faster pace?
Yeah, I'll say the first 9-10 months was around that, focusing on tech debt, and then we have been now building kind of new innovation. One of the features that we are kind of soft launched and now taking to customers is embedded analytics within our customer applications. So this is delivering analytical insights using the data that we have, which will be an embedded experience within the application that we have. So you don't have to navigate to a separate set of dashboards or and it's kind of done in a way so that it's based on the jobs that our users are doing, kind of relevant to that, and help them make those decisions quickly by looking at certain trends, certain KPIs, and things like that. The other main area of focus is like bring in more AI, especially machine learning, into the system. So we were using AI earlier, but kind of more of the expert models and some NLP techniques. But now we are kind of getting into more machine learning techniques, especially around at Redica Systems, we deal with a lot of unstructured or semi-structured data in the form of documents. So especially around processing documents intelligently, or IDP, intelligent document processing using AI ML, right? So building that platform, again, initially a lot of these use cases are internally focused to deliver efficiencies for our data operations team, but these are foundational capabilities that can then be extended to our customer documents. So we can actually take the same architecture or the same processing pipelines, and for us it shouldn't matter whether we get those documents from a third party agency or from a customer system of records, because the same techniques will work on how do we kind of do a better OCR, better processing, better extraction, and taking advantage of some of the innovation that's happening with large language models, vector databases, and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the space is certainly maturing quickly. I think after many years of talk and hype, we're starting to get to actual practical value in terms of how we use AI and ML. One thing I wanted to ask you is about human in the loop. So can you talk a little bit about what human in the loop means, generally speaking, and what it means and how we use it at Redica Systems?
Yeah. So especially when you are dealing with a lot of unstructured or semi-structured data, obviously you can bring in modern data engineering practices or artificial intelligence to build automation. The way I think of this is AI can be like an assistant to help process certain things better, and in some cases, like maybe fully automate. But when it comes to unstructured data, it's very difficult to claim that we can automate everything together, right? So you need the humans in the loop of that data processing, even from a quality assurance perspective, being able to kind of review certain results, being able to correct them. So we needed to build a lot of internal tools that are well integrated within our data ecosystem for our data operations team to be able to manually edit some of the data that we automatically extract, or even correct, quality control, and then publish it. In certain cases, obviously, there are certain human steps that are needed before you can prepare the data for a more automated processing downstream. So that's where I'll say we use a combination of algorithms and humans to be able to generate quality data for our customers.
Okay. Yeah, we have Redica Systems has a team of industry veterans that have been in the industry in quality roles and regulatory surveillance roles for decades. And I know they played very active roles in overseeing the technology in how it's getting labeled, categorized, et cetera.
Absolutely. Means one of our primary goal is also to encode some of those knowledge into our algorithms, into the AI that we are building, right? But saying that is, again, as I said, it's more of a tool or cognitive assistance to the experts to be able to do their job better. Obviously, some automation, but at the end of the day, some of those expertise are critical. Like when you think of things like AI initiatives, it has to be always a cross collaboration across different functions. It's not just a technology solutions, because the domain expertise is primarily the key. What we are using is not just always general purpose AI. It's very specific to the domain, so it needs to understand the domain language, especially the regulatory and the quality language that our users speak. So being able to do things like labeling or even like extracting the right information, we definitely need a lot of well integrated process where experts can review, provide their feedback, and then we can use that feedback to train or retrain our models and make it better.
Yeah, that reminds me, you showed me a slide recently that I thought was very interesting that showed the different flavors of AI. And of course, now with all the buzz around ChatGPT and then Bard, and I forget Microsoft's name for their generative AI LLM, but every large tech company seems to have jumped on the boat. And so generative AI LLMs have become the mental anchor for most people when they think of AI. But this slide you showed me was demonstrating that it actually wasn't going to be generative AI necessarily that had the biggest impact on industries like ours. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, probably we should kind of talk a little bit about AI versus machine learning versus deep learning, there are like a lot of terms that kind of gets used interchangeably a lot of times, right? And again, like there are a lot of debates around this. So there is no one standard definition that is well published. So it kind of varies a little bit based on who you are talking to. But in overall, I think most of the industry veterans who have been working with artificial intelligence will agree like AI is more of an umbrella term for a computer software that mimics human cognition in order to perform complex tasks and basically identify patterns and learn from them over time, right? Now, within AI, there are different techniques, with machine learning being one of them. So I'll call machine learning more as a subdomain or a subfield within AI that uses algorithms that are trained on data to produce models, basically models that can adapt to the data, that can find patterns. Behind the scenes, it's almost like forming a mathematical equation, using that equation, being able to generate certain results, right? And then there are obviously deep learning and other techniques too, where it's much more complex with several layers of neural networks that are solving even more and more complex tasks. Now with the generative AI hype, now generative AI is more, as the name implies, it's around generation of words or language and whatnot. I think what kind of caught the fancy of everyone, ChatGPT, I think of it as almost like an interface that made AI accessible to mass. So it's almost like, even if you think of us as humans, our brains are a neural network. How do we kind of connect our brains together? Is through a interface, which is the language that we speak, being able to understand each other, share ideas and whatnot, right? So ChatGPT is kind of that language interface on top of certain techniques or technologies that has been in existence for long. But I think it just made it available to mass to be able to interact with it, to be able to get results, which obviously has made it more and more popular. But AI has been existent for quite long, and it has been used in many form of the shape. I think at Redica Systems, what we are focused on is more now shifting, as I was saying earlier, we had these expert models. Those are also part of artificial intelligence, but those are kind of expert hand-coded models using certain NLP, natural language processing techniques, that was then deployed to kind of label or tag certain data. From there, we are trying to move into a more machine learning driven, what is called a supervised learning, where our experts are helping create or label certain data as a training data. And that data comes from standard text, rules, regulations, but as well as the data that Redica itself had over time, right? Like which we have been tagging and labeling over time. So using that, now we are building models that can do this labels. And these labels can be various quality system terms, areas, or even other related domain labels that are useful for doing like a trend analysis, doing like risk scoring, so on and so forth. Now, do we have a use of large language models in some of the work that we are doing? Yes, absolutely. We process a lot of documents. So we are also using this prompting based technique to extract information out of those documents too. Now, earlier, a lot of those was done using like regular expressions or fuzzy lookups kind of thing, which are more engineering solutions. Now we are bringing in more machine learning flavors, being able to extract certain sections of a document and being able to prompt with the right question for that section and extract the right key information that are then useful for our downstream analytical data models.
Okay. So it's not like today, at least, maybe this comes down the road, but Redica Systems customers aren't opening up Redica in their browser and typing a natural language search into a search box like, show me the trend of human drug 483s in Bolivia over the last 12 months. It's happening in the background right now, but might move to the front end.
Yes, kind of that's the goal. And for that, you need to build certain foundation. I think when people talk about generative AI, ChatGPT, a lot of time we are ignoring the innovation that's happening with the vector database spaces. I think that's enabling a lot of search kind of capabilities using natural language. So yes, eventually we definitely want to bring natural language search as a front end capability on our product. But before we do that, we have to build certain data foundations and AI foundations and have the correct labeled and tagged data to be able to then convert those natural language queries to a search query that can fetch the right results.
That makes sense. You earlier you mentioned the phrase, another pretty buzzworthy phrase, a data lake house. I was hoping you could explain what that is a little bit, and then perhaps follow that up with explaining our relationship with Snowflake. I know we're a official Snowflake partner in the Snowflake Partner Network. Talk to us a little bit about how we use Snowflake and how it empowers the product.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at the evolution of databases in general, so there was this popularity around data warehouses, data marts, I'll say in 80s, 90s kind of time frame, and even early 2000s, where data warehouses or data marts were built to solve specific problems in a certain business area. Then with the internet scale companies becoming popular with a massive amount of data came the data lake wave, where everyone wanted to put every data into a Hadoop instance and call it a data lake, right? And soon that turned into, in a lot of cases, data swamps. It's like garbage out, right? So that created a lot of challenges where, yes, you may have all possible data stored in a lake, but getting out meaningful insight was difficult. And then building data warehouses on top of it was, again, another step, and kind of expanded the time frame to get value out of data. Then slowly with some of these modern platforms like a Snowflake or a Databricks, I think it's Databricks who coined the term lakehouse first, but I think now it's used as a general term. It's kind of combining the data lake and data warehouse a little bit together, where obviously you have the raw data in its raw form as you have received from the source, but you also have different other layers, from intermediate layers where you are processing the data, applying transformations, to the final layer. So for our use cases, it's not exactly a traditional data warehouse as such, because we are not dealing with like internal system of records as such. What we do is we source data from a lot of third-party sources, right? These are regulatory or quality-related data sources. So we bring all of those data into one environment, which is now Snowflake for us. And that's where Snowflake kind of plays a key role, being like the central data integration, data warehouse, data lake for us, where we are getting this raw data, storing it in its raw form. Then we apply our own cleaning, transformations, normalization. And a lot of data that we deal with also is not very clean. And sometimes you get the same record across multiple different sources, and you need to be able to identify these are all talking about the same object or the same event and whatnot. So we also do a lot of solve a lot of entity resolution problems where we have to match up. It's almost like when we generate a credit report, let's say, for a consumer, right? So their names may be spelled in very different ways, but there should be ways to identify these are all talking about the same person, so that you can bring them together in one report. Similarly, for a lot of our objects, we have to do the same, kind of being able to cluster similar things together, use a lot of entity resolution techniques like fuzzy matching, distance-based algorithms. We do what is in industry term called mastering the data and create like a golden record. And now that's useful from our customers' perspective, because we are taking care of deduping the data and being able to then link different objects together to provide a connected insight. So that entire data pipeline, again, some of them may be fully automated by our data engineering teams. Some of it may need human in the loop. So we have those tools also inbuilt into on top of Snowflake, that basically where humans are reviewing that data, manually editing certain things, that syncs back to Snowflake and then gets used for downstream processing and finally landing up into a data warehouse or a data analytical data schema that we call. That's powering our application as well as a lot of the analytical capabilities that we are developing right now.
Yep. Yeah, it certainly makes sense that all of these data objects, and there are many, there are in our world, there's people. An example of a person might be an FDA investigator. You have documents like maybe a PDF of a 483 or a warning letter. You have organizations, you have sites, and an organization might be comprised or connected to hundreds of sites around the world. Connecting all of that together and performing entity resolution is critical if you're going to perform any kind of sophisticated analysis.
Yeah. No, my favorite example is like there is one site record which particularly we use as an example that comes from 79 different sources, right? And then that finally merges into one golden record. And that's a complex problem because it's not always even not just merging the record. Like once you create, how do you now link it to the right organization, the right person, the right products and whatnot? There are no clear, so these are not coming out of like a clean system of records where you have like a primary key foreign key kind of relationship that you can use to kind of link the record. So even the linking itself is fuzzy sometimes. And again, automation can get you up to a certain percentage. You are not going to get it right always. And that's where again, the human in the loop, the experts plays a key role. Kind of being able to correct some of those mappings or relationships quickly. And the way we have built our data model, those kind of lineage and insights are built into the data itself, where experts can quickly review and understand like what has gone wrong with the algorithms and being able to correct it using the tools that we have.
Yeah. And I think now is a golden moment to bring up the Redica ID. The Redica ID is our unique identifier for every object in our system. Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of the Redica ID to our total solution?
Yeah, so as we are mastering the data and deduping these records into a golden record, we assign an unique ID based on the object, right? And the goal being, because you may have a site information that FDA is talking about, European agencies like EMA or MHRA is talking about, and they all have their own set of identifiers that are not always connected. But when we get those records from those various sources, we identify these are all talking about the same site. So we have to kind of merge and master that record. And for that site, then we'll assign a unique ID, which can then help our customers downstream to be able to kind of even tag their sites to that unique ID. And going forward, basically monitor all events or all enforcements that are happening around that site, right? Same thing we do across all objects, whether it's people, whether it's inspection, mastering the record, identifying the golden record, and then that golden record has what is technically like a primary key, let's say for that object that is generated by Redica. We call that as a Redica ID, and depending on, we had certain convention depending on the object and whatnot. This also solves a lot of downstream problems for our customers, especially if they have multiple system of records. It may happen like over time because of acquisitions and whatnot. There are multiple systems that are talking about the same entity in different ways. So for them able to use that Redica ID and even connect those systems will help them to do that same entity resolution that we have done upfront for our sites or other objects.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. We are bringing a level of structure and therefore clarity to an industry that has really struggled with unstructured data. So I think what the future holds is, and its impact on reducing compliance risk, improving patient outcomes and product quality is really encouraging. So I'll be excited to continue watching the space with you.
It is. Means what data we have from this third-party sources are obviously valuable, but if you ask me like what the future holds, I think being able to connect this data with internal customer system of records, that's where we can deliver a lot of value. Being able to take the inspections records and then look at what internal audit records do you have, being able to connect them at a site level, do the risk scoring. That opens up also another space of AI that we can dive into, which will be more around predictive analytics, being able to predict the risk of
Mhm.
a site or of a product, a medical device, so on and so forth.
Yep. Well, AJ, this has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. I could talk for much longer, but I think we'll leave it here, and maybe we'll do a follow-up episode in the near future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No, absolutely. This is very close to my heart. And if you want to talk about AI ML, I can take the entire day. So thanks for arranging this. It was good talking to you.
Absolutely. Have a good one, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.